application, we are going to prepare you for any waxing service that you need to do. So, we're going to dive right in and not delay any longer. Welcome to waxing. After watching this video, you should be able to identify everything you need to properly perform waxing application. Remember, it takes time to master, and the best way to master is to be flexible and have fun. Once you find what works best for you, then you will feel confident and get faster. Don't rush it and don't stress. Take it step by step. So let's learn waxing. First things first, waxing is the application or the process of applying sugar wax, any other honey, cream, charcoal, any wax product, whether it's hot or cold, onto the skin. The wax will then attach to the hair. Either a wax paper or a hard wax is used to then remove the hair from the follicle, including the hair bulb, causing smoother, easier management of body hair, facial hair, and a less aggressive approach to overall hair removal. This skill is awesome as a business because it is low cost, it can be fast, and it's fairly simple. You apply the wax, you remove it, client is happy, you're happy, not too much goes into it. As a client, this is a quick service. It is a medium pain level depending on the client, the wax that you're using, the area that you're waxing. It is a lasting effect of 3 to 6 weeks depending on their hair growth cycle. And it depends on the client, but for the most part, waxing is safe. There are several contraindications that we'll discuss, but for the most part, waxing is a fairly easy thing to maintain. It's cost effective and it has really, really good results when done properly. So a few more benefits: less growth, lesser finer hair when it regrows. I put perception here because the reality of it is waxing does not reduce the hair growth in an area. Essentially what's happening is the faster the hair is removed from the follicle, meaning the 3 stages of hair growth: anagen, catagen, telogen. The faster the hair is removed, so if it's removed in the anagen stage, the longer it will take for the hair to grow back. So it has the perception of less or finer regrowth. But in reality, if you're waxing consistently, you're just getting the hair out of the follicle before it's coarse enough for the client to notice. Skin exfoliation, it is a great way to keep the body exfoliated, keep the area exfoliated. There are no shaving no shaving rash risks when waxing, and you are typically able to see fewer ingrown hairs since waxing removes the bulb in its entirety. It's less likely that the hair will grow in and back into the follicle. And then you get to avoid the risk of nicks and cuts that you would receive when shaving. So contraindications. Remember, contraindications are our big red stop sign. A contraindication simply means it's unsafe for you, the provider, or them, the client, to get this service. For whatever the reason is, it is unsafe. Those reasons are varicose veins, phlebitis, skin disorders that can be aggravated by waxing, epilepsy, the pain can trigger a seizure, diabetes, as uncontrolled blood sugar can impact healing after waxing, hemophilia, which is any blood disorders, circulatory disorders, autoimmune disorders like HIV, AIDS, lupus, contagious diseases or disorders, again, safe for you and safe for the client. You don't want anything that you can get, and you don't want to give them anything, so you would not be working. Allergy to ingredients. If a client is allergic to honey, you wouldn't use a honey wax. If a client is allergic to lemon, you wouldn't use a sugar wax that lemon is one of the main ingredients. Very cut and dry. Hypersensitive skin. Someone whose skin is very thin, someone whose skin is recently sunburned or irritated, someone whose skin is very is prone to infection, someone whose skin is just not healthy. It's not working the way it would normally work. You don't want to go wax that type of skin because you don't want to create additional issues. Someone during a high risk pregnancy. So, pregnancy, not as a whole, you can be waxed while pregnant. You can give waxing while pregnant. You just want to be mindful of body mechanics for the pregnant provider or the pregnant client, and you want to be even more cautious about lifting or ripping any skin because pigmentation disorders and things like that are more common during pregnancy. It's also likely that additional disorders and diseases may come up while pregnant. So, high risk pregnancy, not necessarily just because they're pregnant, but if they're considered high risk, you might want to back off waxing or have them bring a doctor's note. Recent treatments or product use. So, chemical exfoliation, I would say at least 7 to 10 days, depending on the exfoliation. If they got a manual exfoliant and say a facial, 3 to 5, depending on the ingredient that was used. If they got a chemical peel, 21 to 45. If they got a microderm, for example, different exfoliations are going to come with a different range, but 7 to 10 is a good place to start. 3 to 10 is a good place to start for manual exfoliants. Microdermabrasion, again, I would say 3 days after microdermabrasion is a waxing in that area. Okay. Recent injectables, I would recommend, because injectables are a higher medical level service, meaning it's performed by a nurse and or a physician, I would take the recommendation of the injector. So if the injector says 7 to 10 days, I would add 3 to 7 to that and go with that. So if they say 10, I'd say 14 to 20 just to cover myself, but I'm always going to go with the recommendation of the higher service and add a little bit of time to it for safety. Recent surgery or implants, exfoliations including topical medications like Retin-A, Accutane, Adapalene, etc. That's anything that's typically prescribed for someone with getting acne treatments. So if someone puts on their consultation form that they're currently working with a physician or a dermatologist, which is a physician, but a dermatologist physician that is potentially prescribing them something, they need to be off of that medication from as minimum of 90 days up until a full year, depending on what it was and how long they took it. Renova, Tarzan, Differin, vitamin A, or other topical peeling agents. These things are typically used for anti-aging. Again, if they're seeing a dermatologist and have been prescribed something, you're looking at as short as 90 days wait to wax an area up to a year. Skin lighteners like hydroquinone, which again is going to come from a higher level provider than you, so I would take the recommendation. But skin lighteners, exfoliating topical medications, acne treatments, anti-aging treatments, these are all things that compromise the integrity of the skin. They typically make the skin drier and thinner. So waxing, in my opinion, I want to wait as long as I possibly can for the client to be off of those things. Cortisone creams, acne medication, which Accutane, Retin-A, blood thinning medications, anything that they're taking for post heart attack, post stroke, post anything that is a medical condition, I would look that up. Quick Google search, what is XYZ used for? And if it was used, to maintain someone's health, meaning they're not in optimal, normal health, then I would, get a doctor's permission from that. And anyone currently undergoing chemo or radiation, depending on the circumstance, I would work directly with their physician, have their physician fax or email clearance to receive these treatments, and you're all good. So, I just mentioned a list of things, and I wanted to kind of make its own slide to point out that most waxing is in vanity's sake, right? So they're coming in, they're getting a facial, and they want to be a lip wax. They're getting, I'll say for cosmetologists, they're getting, a blowout and they want a eyebrow wax, or they're getting lash extensions and they want an eyebrow wax. In my personal experience, so in the event of a double service, let's say waxing and facials, I would always wax first and then exfoliate and avoid exfoliating the waxed area. I also prefer pain before relaxation. But let's just do in the event of a double service like waxing and a eyelash extension application. Many of you have the capacity to do both. Well, I can tell you from firsthand experience, if I have a client who wants an eyebrow wax and I'm going to apply eyelash extensions, it is beneficial for me to wax first and then apply the extensions. Why? Because if the extensions are long enough or curly enough, they can actually be in the way of the wax, get stuck in your brow wax, and then you either rip out eye extensions or you make a mistake and get wax on the extension. It's just a whole bunch of things that can happen. So in my opinion, pain first, the second part of any service secondly. In the event they are getting a facial that includes an exfoliation section and some type of face waxing, I would do the face waxing, and then when I get to the exfoliation step, I'm going to avoid double exfoliation on the areas that I waxed. So let's talk about what you need to actually perform a wax. This is subjective. Some of these things are hard and fast requirements. For example, to perform waxing, you need a wax pot, you need wax. But some things are not required, like disposable drapes or disposable bikini bottoms. Those things are preferences. If you start your training, if you start your mindset to have everything and then adjust as you get comfortable and you get your skills where you want them to be, then you make the necessary changes. But for me, this is a nice general list. It is coming from your Milady textbook, chapter 11, page 484 of your fundamentals. So multi-use items, things you're going to use on more than one person and can be properly sanitized and disinfected after and before each service. Wax pot, tweezers, scissors, container for consumables, and trash can. So if a consumable is a cleanser that you're going to use to clean the area, before and after that service, I would wipe down that consumables container. At the academy, I have you disperse your consumables like your cleanser, your post wax, all of those things into a smaller container, so I'm never at risk of cross-contaminating my bottles. Again, this is going to be preference when you get out there into the real world, so you are able to work from your bottle. But if you do, because it's multi-use and can be exchanged between client and client, I would just make a very good effort to make sure I'm following my proper safety, sanitation, and infection control. So single use. These are things that we're only ever going to use on that one person and will be disposed of. So if you dispense it, once it's on your tray and you pull that first strip, you are no longer allowed to put it back in the container. So only take what you need, have extras available in the treatment room if you need them, but I would only dispense onto my workstation what I am actually going to use. Cotton rounds, gloves, SD wipes, wax strips, popsicle sticks, baby powder, disposable drapes, disposable bikini bottoms, hard wax, soft wax. I put that in single use because obviously you're going to work from the same container of hard wax and the same container of soft wax, but because it's single use in nature, I'm going to make sure I never double dip those popsicle sticks into my hard or soft wax. And I'm going to make sure that I don't ever cross-contaminate from client to client or from pot to client. That's why I put the wax itself into single use, because ultimately, once it's on my stick, it goes to the client and to the trash. It never goes back into the wax pot. Then you have consumables. These are products that you're going to be using pre and post wax: cleanser, wax removing lotions, aloe vera gels, baby powder, and sanitizer. Another thing that I like to have that's not on here, and I'm going to talk about it in my one tip of the service, waxing is not an aggressive service, but it is harsh on the skin in the moment. So clients can sometimes feel red, itchy, or even have a little bit of hives. So I like to keep either ice cold 4x4s and or cold towels so that I can soothe an area and leave the client with a more positive experience. We're going to skip the how-to actual demo in this video because each of the services, each of the sections of the body will have their own video. But what I do want to do is get a video set up to where you see how we actually set up and break down a wax service. So we'll skip this one for now and you'll see it in a later video. And then variations. So variations of the service. You can vary this service based on area, arm, leg, wax. You can do, bikini waxes, Brazilian waxes, male waxing. You can do sugar wax, hard wax only. You can do soft wax. You can do a design type service in your waxing. The sky's really the limit. It may seem very cut and dry when it comes to waxing because you're just taking hair out, but at the end of the day you still can vary it for your client. And then pain tolerance of the client. So depending on the client and their pain tolerance, some people are going to take better to hard wax, some are going to take better to soft wax, some are going to take better to a sugar wax or a sugar paste. It's going to depend on the client, and ultimately I would have 3 to 4 options for hair removal mediums. So hard wax, soft wax, different types of hard waxes, different types of soft wax readily available if waxing is the main service that I offer. That way, if I'm using a wax product and it's not working for this client, or I do that first pull and they get a little irritated, I can immediately switch and try something else to hopefully get a better result, as opposed to not being able to satisfy the client and kind of losing out. So one tip of the service, and like I said, I'm actually going to give you 2. I'll expand a little bit more on the cold, but the first one is when waxing using soft and hard wax, cover the full area with wax, then remove all of the wax in rapid succession. This is called speed waxing, and waxing hurts. It is a painful process. You're taking hair from the follicle and you are removing it and the bulb, so it's not a painless procedure. So larger areas, depending on the body that you're working on, and concentrated removal tends to be easier for the client to manage. Imagine doing a wax in 10 applications. So you apply wax 10 times and then you remove wax 10 times, versus applying twice as big of an area. So you apply wax 5 times and then remove wax 5 times. But you can even take it another step and say, I'm going to do all of my application for the area. So all 5 of those strips are going to be laid, and then I'm going to do all of my removal, as opposed to apply, remove, apply, remove, apply, remove. So depending on the client, speed waxing, covering more of an area and then removing that, a larger area, tends to work better and provide more comfort for your client. And when I say comfort, I mean a reduced amount of discomfort. They're never going to be comfortable. It's just the nature of the service. And then it's faster than placing each strip and then removing it individually. So I said I was going to give you a bonus. And like I said, with the cold, I have been waxed, every area you can imagine. I've had wax, and I've had many different salon experiences. And I can tell you that anytime a salon provides a cold treatment post service, whether that's with a cool toner, a cool wipe, and just cleaning the area with something that's cold, my experience is inherently way easier and more memorable, and I'm much happier. Even though the service is still the same, a leg wax is a leg wax. But if I go home and I don't have, red itchy legs because they took 2 extra minutes to provide that comfort, that cooling treatment, then to me it's much better and it's much more of a positive experience. So if waxing is something that you're going to do as your main service, I would just go the extra mile and make sure you're providing something like that. Appropriate aftercare. So if you haven't already, screenshot what you see on the screen. Aftercare there are some things that are important for everyone to do no matter what, and there are some things that are preferences. As you grow and as you learn, you're going to find what's preferences for the areas you're waxing and what's required. But I would start off with everything on the list and reduce down from there. So for our aftercare, we're going to avoid heat, and that can be heat from the bath, the shower, or a sauna for 12 to 24 hours. They're not going to go work out, 30 minutes after a Brazilian. It's just not a beneficial thing to do. Heat can irritate the area. Sweating can come with all type of risk for bacteria to impact the open follicles that you just created. It's just not worth it. 12 to 24 hours. Avoid sun tanning, whether that's in a bed or natural, for 24 hours. It goes back to the heat. Avoid aggressive treatments for 24 hours, chemical exfoliation, etc. That also is going to include physical intimacy if you're doing private area waxing. Obviously, a face is not necessarily, well, you know what? That's not my business. Avoid aggressive treatments to the area for 24 hours. So all levels of intimacy would probably, fall under that, because I don't know what people are doing, and that's their business. So 24 hours. Avoid exfoliation on the particular waxed area for 72 hours. Avoid fragrant products, lotions, perfumes, anything that has added fragrance in the waxed area. You just want to avoid at least 24 to 48 hours, so that the area can properly, those follicles can properly close. And by close, I mean become clogged enough to where the fragrance or any other harsh chemicals would penetrate too deep into the follicle. You're going to avoid products that are high in SPF for 12 to 24 hours. Because of that, you're also going to try to avoid sun exposure. All pink areas should go away in 6 to 8 hours. If they last longer, please contact a professional. Or your client, let them know that they should contact you if any itching, swelling, or redness has not gone away in 6 to 8 hours. But all of you guys are professionals and you like to go the extra mile. So you're going to cold treat your areas before they leave, and they shouldn't have to deal with any irritation anyway. Another bonus is you can do LED, red light, which is regenerative, on a waxed area. So LED body treatment after a body wax as like a 20-minute session as an add-on. Great way to up the price and enhance your customer service. And while they're doing the LED, you can be cleaning and setting up for the next person. And then for best results, repeat waxing every 3 to 6 weeks or as needed. So what I would recommend is, if a client is new to waxing any area or waxing in general, I like to have my client set on a 3 to 4 week regimen for the first 2 visits post the initial visit, so that we can wax as much of the anagen hair as possible, so that they can stretch that wax to 5 to 6 weeks. So it may seem like it's more expensive up front, but ultimately they get to enjoy the benefits and the perks of waxing for longer by committing to follow-up treatments earlier rather than later. So cleaning up after the service, I believe, is one of the last slides we're going to do. And the cleaning is really no different than you would for any other aesthetic treatment. You're going to throw away your disposables, clean and disinfect your treatment table and work area, change wax collars if needed. 9 times out of 10, you're going to need to, unless it was something like an eyebrow wax. If there's any wax on the collar, it needs to be disposed of and replaced. That's what they're there for. So change it. Place multi-use items in a holding tray, then wash with soap and water before soaking them in EPA and sterilizer. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a place, nail shops, no shade to nail shops, but I've gone to nail shops, I've gotten a wax, or I've watched them wax, and they will wax and they'll tweeze, and we're all hype, and then they'll take the tweezers and throw them right into EPA. That is not doing anything. Remember, EPA does not work to destroy physical dirt and debris. It will only work for the microbes. It will only work for the bacteria. So if there's hair or wax on that tweezer, on that implement, then the EPA is really just being diluted and not effectively doing anything. So you should be washing your implements with soap and water, rinsing them, drying as much of the water off as possible with a paper towel, placing them in the EPA, removing from EPA, rinsing, and then placing in a sterilizer for the full 10 minutes or as recommended by the manufacturer. Don't skip steps with this. Waxing is almost always likely to produce, blood exposure. So it's for the longevity of your career, for your license, and for, your ability to continue to work in this industry, just take the right steps. Use wax remover to remove any wax that might have gotten on the table or floor. Pro tip, and I learned this from someone else, but coconut oil is an inexpensive alternative to the wax remover that comes with like waxing kits from the manufacturer. So Gigi, for example, they sell wax remover for skin and, surface areas. So instead of buying 2 different wax removers, you can get a giant jar of coconut oil, put it on a candle warmer, and then after you're done with your waxing, use a scooper, go in, get some coconut oil, remove the wax from your client, and use that same coconut oil later to remove wax from any surface on the floor, the bed, the wall, wherever it may be. One product that's safe for the floor, the materials, but it's also safe for your client, and it's a nice alternative to having to buy post-wax lotion, post-wax remover for the skin, wax remover for, tools and implements. It eliminates a lot of the, huff and puff. And then retrieve new clean items for the next service and retrieve paperwork, including client intake and wax release form. Like I said, cleaning up after the service, cleaning up before the service, making sure you've got your consumables, your disposables, and your multi-use items, they're prepped, they're ready, is gonna make all the difference. Stay tuned for the next couple of videos in the waxing series. Like I said, you will find a video for setup and breakdown of a waxing room, so you can see it in real time. And then for each of the waxing protocols, so arm, underarm, legs, back, Brazilian, male Brazilian, full face, eyebrow, whatever it is, we will have an individual video for those. So until I see you in facility, happy practicing.